economy, abortion, the border, issues that matter to you. AZ's On the Fence. Now here's your host, Drew Grunwald.
And welcome to AZ's On the Fence. Joining me on the fence today is Senator Janae Shamp. She represents District 29. She's our current senator for that district and is on the campaign trail for re-election. Super excited to have you on the show today, Senator Shamp. And, you know, you've got a fantastic background, and I love in the bio, and I'm going to brag on your behalf, okay? I mean, you graduated with a bachelor's of science in molecular biosciences and biotechnology, from ASU, and got your BS in nursing, magna cum laude, from Grand Canyon University in 2012. So you're smarty pants.
Good afternoon, Drew. Thank you so much for having me on. I don't know if that I'd call myself a smarty pants, but maybe my husband might when he's joking around with me. I have always been kind of a science geek. I was that kid in school. And so I was very excited to get into the biotechnology field, you know, in Arizona. And when I graduated, unfortunately, we didn't have any biotech here yet. But I always saw that the future in that field would help people. But again, always worried about balancing it out. So, and then life kind of took me in one direction. And when my mom passed away, that is when I got the nudge to maybe look at going into nursing, since I'd grown up in a hospital with my sick mom. So that's how that ended up happening. And it was very God-driven, and I'm very grateful for it.
Yes. It's interesting how life can sometimes bring you lemons and you turn it into lemonade. So you're also a rancher's wife. It's interesting. You know, you're in a rural and suburban district. Mm-hmm. You are a fan of horses and farming and agriculture. So you're not just a smarty pants. You're also just a very down to earth individual. And I really appreciate you being on the fence with me today. Let's dig right into some issues. You are an incumbent. You're running for a second term.
Yes, sir.
What would you say were some of your accomplishments in your first term as a senator?
Well, just recently, just this beginning of this week, in fact, Governor Hobbs signed SB 1232, which now makes it a class 1 felony. If you rape a child under the ages of 12 years old and cause them physical harm, you will spend the rest of your natural life in prison. And I'm pretty darn proud of that. When I started working with Kaylee Kozak and working on tightening up the sex offender laws, there's some big holes, and we rank really low as far as our laws and how they're structured. We don't even follow the federal SORNA guidelines. We kind of have our own way of doing things that they've been doing since 2002. So we're looking at revamping that. So over the course of the last 2 sessions, I've kind of laid some groundwork on where we need to get to in order to be in compliance and utilize federal data. I mean, if there's data that's available to us that shows us what works and what doesn't work, why wouldn't we be utilizing that data and the system, right? As I'm a nurse, I say this all the time. You have to have data to make decisions. And so in order to have that, you need to be able to track things. And you also need to be able to allow the public to be aware. So I'm very proud of protecting children and families from the most heinous of crimes. And I'm also very proud of the healthcare work that I've been doing, specifically last session with breast cancer, making it so that doctors can prescribe what they need to prescribe for their specific patients, kind of giving them back their ability to make the best decision for their patients and not let it be dictated by insurance. That really, as a nurse, that has been something that's always kind of bugged me. That, the clinicians were losing their capability to make the decisions, and they're having to figure out how to jump through hoops to make sure they can get it done and take care of their patients.
I mean, it would be very frustrating. You know that there's a medication out there that works for certain patients, but insurance for some reason isn't approving it or something for their patients. It makes no sense to me. So I'm glad that there's somebody like you out there carrying the torch to try and help.
Drew, I'm
Go
really
right
glad
ahead.
you said that because that made me think of something else that I've been working on. And that is non-medical switching is something that's happening with these pharmacy benefit managers. And it's extremely difficult to understand. And I almost sometimes wonder if it's on purpose on how they're able to do things. And I had a bill this session that it got hung up at the last minute in the House. It got some money attached to it that put it in what we call the money box. And, in the budget negotiations, it wasn't something that was deemed important, apparently. But non-medical switching is a big deal. And that is where let's say you have a chronic condition that you take a specific drug for, and that drug works for you. And you specifically sign up for a healthcare plan because every year we get offered, right? So we make our decisions. And so you sign up for a healthcare plan. And then sometime during that year, that drug is dropped off the formulary. So you go to pick up your prescription and the pharmacist says, well, that's not covered anymore. So here's something else. Well, what happens if you're a hemophiliac, let's say, and they've gone through 4 or 5 medications to get you to the point where you have one that works? Now they want to give you something that may or may not work with a condition that could actually cause you to die pretty easily with just getting in a car accident because you can't clot, right? I mean, so non-medical switching is a big deal. It is something I'm working on and will continue to work on because I truly believe that the relationship between the doctor and the patient is one that needs to be maintained and managed by the patient and the doctor.
More so than the insurance company and the pharmacist. I mean, the pharmacist is simply trying to probably help, saying, well, this drug doesn't work and here's one that's supposed to be a good replacement. But it's the insurance companies. And I wonder how much the insurance companies, and I probably will get in trouble for saying this, are in bed with the pharmacies, and they're all just working to push. If they're not, once something goes generic and the pharmaceutical companies aren't making the money that they used to anymore, they want to push new drugs that have patents and things again. And it may not work for people. I know it's all about the mighty dollar for some of those people, but thank goodness that Arizonans and your constituents have someone like you out there fighting for them.
Thanks, Drew. I appreciate that. I don't know about any kind of, weird things going on, but I have lots of questions, and I question why there's a middleman, and I question on why Medicare will pay $2,700 for a drug that if you were to go to an actual small pharmacy and you want to just pay cash, it would be $17. I mean, there's plenty of examples of that. So that bothers me a bit and makes me question what is the relationship and why is that happening?
Exactly. So one of your top issues is medical freedom. And it sounds like we're scratching the surface on that. But what does medical freedom mean to you? Because I think it means different things to different people, but that's probably a broad statement. But medical freedom to you means what?
So medical freedom to me means that you as a patient get to make the decisions about how you want your healthcare, what you want it to look like. And you have to understand everything. I look through a specific lens. I can't take my nurse glasses off. That lens is something that I look at everything with. And so as a perioperative nurse, when I go to get my patient and we're going back to the operating room, I make sure that their wishes, that's what we follow through with as we go through the process. So let's say that your religious wishes do not allow for you to accept blood from another human being, only from yourself. And let's say you don't have any stored at that specific facility and you're going in for an elective procedure and you say, I do not want blood products from anyone else. And then we talk about all the risks of what that looks like. The patient makes an educated decision based on the risks and benefits with their personal beliefs, and that is what we honor. And that is something that ethically it's probably one of my biggest things in the operating room, and I fight for what my patient wants and needs. And so what ended up happening is, because of fear and because we were told things, healthcare workers were not even allowed to make that decision for themselves. Something that I have stood up for with all of my patients. Now, healthcare workers can't have that medical freedom. So that's kind of where it morphed into when we talk about medical freedom, because everyone talks about, oh, she's a nurse that got fired for not taking the jab. So That's what she's talking about. And that really isn't. That's just a component of it. I believe that patients need to be educated. I think that the people need to be educated about their health, about what the options are, and they get to make that decision because this is the United States of America and we are free people. There's others that say that what we're talking about, could get into the pro-life debate, which that isn't what we're talking about. It is specifically about you as a citizen of the United States making your own healthcare choices, but you have to have all the information given to you, and then you should have that right to make that decision.
That's what I had a feeling you meant by that. I know some people are also thinking medical freedom might mean reproductive rights and some things like that. I know Arizona had an archaic abortion law after Roe v. Wade was removed from the federal government and put back into the state's hands. And it looks like the state of Arizona is moving in a direction regarding that isn't so archaic. Were you involved in that vote recently?
I was, and I'm 100% pro-life. And so when we started having this discussion, and the reality of the situation is that before Roe v. Wade was overturned, polling across the country showed that 54% of Americans believe that abortion should be legal. After Roe v. Wade was overturned, 74% of the people believed that abortion should be legal to some extent. So that just shows that the hearts and minds of the people of America are conflicted. And when that happens, I, as a representative, I have to represent my own ethical beliefs as well as my district. And when I was elected, everyone knew I am 100% pro-life. So my vote on the floor was to not overturn, because I believe in life at conception. With that being said, I don't believe it has anything to do with a person's health care, because now we're talking about another life. So that is a completely, there's not even a gray area there for me. But what I really think that needs to happen is that we need to start having conversations of what it looks like, of why abortions are happening. Is it because moms feel they don't have economic security to be able to raise their children? And if that's the case, then why are we not making sure that every woman out there knows that there are options? I would argue that we need to spend more time understanding all of the different avenues that are out there that life can continue. And when we talk about rape and incest and the life of the mother, that's less than 1% of all abortions. And we know that. But that becomes a talking point, and it becomes a narrative that takes off, and then that causes fear. And anytime you have fear, you get a knee-jerk reaction. So I think that we've done a great job with laws to protect life, but what we haven't done is that we haven't done a good job changing the hearts and minds of the people of Arizona, the people of this country, to know that there are so many options and there are so much support. And I think that that's where the focus should be.
Yeah, we need to put the message out there so everybody, again, has that informed decision. Appreciate you being on the fence with me today. This is Senator Janae Shamp with District 29. We'll be right back after the break with more on border security, parental authority via school choice, and making sure that your constitutional rights are at the top of the current issues for Senator Shamp. We'll be right back after the break.
At A2 Luxury Real Estate, we're not your typical real estate agents. We're appraisers, finance professionals, and savvy real estate investors. Whether it's determining the right selling price, connecting you with local and global buyers, or guiding you through all aspects of the sale, we are your partners every step of the way. We're passionate about real estate, and we know luxury. The pinnacle of luxury starts with A2 Luxury Real Estate. Visit us at a2luxre.com or call 602-888-1433. Realty One Group.
And welcome back to AZ's on the Fence. I'm your host, Drew Grunwald, and joining me is Senator Janae Shamp with District 29. In the last segment, we were talking about medical freedom, medical choices, Senator Shamp's background, and some legislation that she's been successful in getting passed. I'd like to switch gears a little bit and talk about border security. You're not in one of the districts that's right on the border, but Arizona is a border state, and it's a big issue. I know you've got some information, and it sounds like it's a very key issue for you as well. Please share with your listeners what you shared with me just a minute ago.
Okay. So every state's a border state now, Drew.
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
and national attention was brought when the nursing student in Georgia was violently murdered when she was out for a jog early in the morning. Lake and Riley, that, of course, as a nurse, that I saw that right away and grabbed a hold of that and wanted to reach out to the family and then make sure that everybody understands that this is happening everywhere. And if it can happen on a prestigious college to an incredibly gifted young woman wanting to go into the profession of nursing to help others is brutally raped and murdered, that can happen anywhere, and it can happen to anyone's mom, daughter, niece, granddaughter. And we need to make sure that everyone understands that this is a crisis, this is an invasion, and it's happening at the southern border. There was a March poll that proved that the Americans across the country, 72%, believe the federal government is not securing our border and that they're failing Americans. That's a pretty incredible poll by American Greatness. So I found that very interesting, and we've done quite a bit of polling here in Arizona. As you may know, SB 1231 was my bill, and it was the mirror bill to Texas's SB 4. And what that does is, plain and simple, the words just state that it makes it a state crime to enter into our state from any nation except through a lawful port of entry. And what I don't understand is why anyone would have a problem with that bill unless they're trying to make it about emotions and a narrative, because that's exactly what they did. They said things like it's SB 1070 2.0 and that people are going to be victimized because they're going to be asked to show their papers. And that is not what this is. We made it very clear. It was about probable cause, had to be met, and that this was to give our law enforcement the capability to detain these people. Because right now the handcuffs are on our law enforcement. Our state of law elected as well as hired law enforcement can't do anything. It's a federal issue. Well, it is not a federal issue when little girl in Phoenix finds a bag of what looks like Skittles sitting on her front porch, and she picks one up, and that little girl dies because she overdoses on fentanyl. It's not a federal issue when we're talking about women being tied to rape trees in Arizona. And when they come into the hospital, not only will they never be the same again physically, they will never be the same again emotionally. And I would think that people that are fighting for protecting the rights of immigrants would be against that, because to say that that's not a humanitarian crisis, I don't know. I just don't understand, unless it's about talking points and a narrative and to feed fear, because we know when you feed fear, you end up with non-logical, not data-driven narratives, and I think that that's to direct a vote personally. But we have done quite a bit of polling here in Arizona, and specifically in 7 swing districts here in Arizona, overall 68% support an illegal immigration ballot measure. Because when Governor Hobbs vetoed SB 1231, she put it back to the only course we have, and that is to take it to the voters. And it's time for we the people to decide if we need to do something as a state when the federal government fails to protect our borders.
It's important to have the information so you can make the decision. And I don't believe that you're against immigration.
No.
I believe you just want it to be legal immigration, and they should come through ports of entry where they can be vetted and we can find out if they're terrorists or not. With people just why would people avoid ports of entry if they're not trying to enter our country, illegally? Possibly they are criminals released from other. Why are people coming across our borders from 160 nations across our globe coming through our southern border and not through our ports of entry if they're not hiding something?
Agreed. If you're not doing anything wrong and the Biden administration is saying we will grant you asylum, please come to the United States, then why wouldn't you walk through a lawful port of entry and then claim asylum with Border Patrol? That's what you would do, unless you're up to no good or you have a background that would say that we do not want you here in the United States. So I'm an American who loves her country. I'm a patriot. And that means I also love immigration because that's how our country was founded. I'm Irish. I mean, I don't think I need to go into the history of Irish immigrants. So I support everything of what our country and how it was founded, from our forefathers coming up with our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and our Declaration of Independence from another country, so that we could be the land of the free to practice our freedom of religion. I mean, that's what we were founded on. That is why we came here. So would I ever want somebody who's being persecuted in their country to not have the capability to be free in ours? Absolutely not. But what I believe is a crime is creating this humanitarian crisis that's happening at the border because the drug cartels are controlling the border. They are totally controlling what's happening. These children are coming across with wristbands. Those wristbands show what they've paid and where they're supposed to go. That right there should cause everyone to stand up and say, okay, stop. We can't do this. Then the fact that there's hundreds of thousands of children that are unaccounted for that have come here, come on, we need to be better. We need to do better. And it isn't about because you're an R or a D. This should be about the United States of America and Arizona cares about people. And we want to make sure we're taking care of the people that need to be taken care of. But we also are a country and a state based on laws. Because if we do not have laws, we have pure anarchy. And what happens then? More innocent people are hurt. And that's what we have going on with these drug cartels. There is a war and pure anarchy going on at the border. I've been down there many times and talked to civilian as well as talking to the sheriff's border strike force, the Sabre unit, and they all say that what they're dealing with, these aren't just your coyotes smuggling people. This is these people, these cartel workers, employees, they're being trained by Hezbollah. I mean, the terrorists that hate the United States are now training the cartel guys. What are they? If we are not declaring that a terrorist organization, I mean, that just absolutely baffles me that Governor Hobbs vetoed that, because that would give the state the capability to investigate these accountants and lawyers that are living in Arizona that are actually making all this money and helping this to occur. It should absolutely sicken every Arizonan and every American. This is an invasion. It is a crisis, and there is a war going on the Arizona southern border. Texas is doing a good job of stopping it, and guess what? They're coming to Arizona now. The increase in the Tucson sector is through the roof. Some of the data that I have, that fiscal year 2024, they've reported 406,441 illegal alien encounters in the Arizona Tucson sector. And that is because it's down 200% in Texas. They're shifting.
Yeah, they're going to go. So if we pass a law, it should just as well work here. Let's change gears just a little bit. And I love your passion. You are a smarty pants, that's for sure. You're talking data points. You're not just, making it up and pulling out of your hat. So talk to me about school choice.
I think it's the civil rights issue of our times, personally. And I believe that it boils down to one sentence, and I say it often, and that is school choice is parental authority. Parents get to make a decision about their children. The government, the state, they do not own our kids. They do not get to make the decision about where your children go to school. You pay property taxes. You should have a right for your tax dollars to be spent educating your children as you see fit. It's that simple. And it actually is saving Arizona tax dollars. And it's interesting to me that the left and some of these organizations want to scream that it's being utilized to steal money from the state, because Legos should not be allowed to be bought for children. And I would argue, have you done any study about how Legos help children develop their fine motor skills? When they have concerns about kids going to trampoline parks. In Arizona in the summer, where else are they supposed to get some physical education? because physical education is extremely important for our children. Otherwise, obesity, which is one of the number one killers in the United States, is going to skyrocket in our children. We're already seeing the increase. So these arguments, I get one that really was baffling to me is they bought skis for their kids. Well, I would argue in Arizona in the winter, there's a lot of skiing that goes on. And I actually went to school where we cross-country skied for PE. So it's just the narrative that they want to base on fear without actually looking at the data point. So I'm very proud that I've been a school choice proponent. I won the School Choice Award last year, been very hands-on with working with the Arizona Department of Education to make sure that we're educating parents out there that this exists, that you have this option. And this isn't for the rich. This is for everyone. Because I would argue saying that it's for the rich is the dumbest argument in the world because the rich can afford private schools. It's the socioeconomically struggling communities that this works the best for because then they have the capability to utilize their tax dollars to get the same and best education that they see for their children.
I love your passion, and I love so much that you were on the fence with me today. Senator Shamp, please tell your listeners where they can find out more information about you and your campaign and all of the issues that you really are supporting for your Arizona constituents.
Well, Drew, I do have a website, voteforshamp.com. And my email is voteforshamp@gmail.com. So I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. If you have a concern, please reach out. And I would also say to follow me across all the social media platforms. I'm at Arizona. Actually, it's at AZ Senator Shamp. That's on Twitter, Instagram. That's where I'm mostly, formerly known as Twitter X, as well as Instagram and Facebook. Those are the platforms that I use the most. And the AZ Senate Republicans, we do a lot of work on putting out videos and press releases about what we're doing in the Senate. And that's a great way to also to see what I'm up to. But Steve Montenegro is representative. He's my seatmate. He's over in the House. And James Taylor is running for the seat that was vacated when Austin Smith decided not to run again. And the three of us are the team, Shamp, Montenegro, and Taylor. We are the team for LD29 to continue to stand and fight for what's important to all of Arizona. And that is securing our border, helping to manage the housing crisis and the inflation problems that we're facing because of the Biden administration, and to continue to make sure that we have medical freedom and school choice.
And that's our show for today. I want to thank my guests, Kathleen Wynn, running for Arizona's 6th Congressional District, and Senator Janae Shamp, running for re-election for Arizona's LD29. Thank you for listening to AZ's On the Fence, heard on KFNN 1510 AM and 105.3 FM Sundays at 9 a.m., or you can download every episode wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Now have a great week ahead, and remember, your vote matters.